I have pulled this carbon fiber cowling on and off of this helicopter more times than I care to admit, but it's permanently installed now. I'm Callie, I'm the OKS engineer. Let's get into it. Alright guys, with the big projects done and finally out of the way, it's time to start making this thing actually look like a helicopter. I am still waiting on the engine and its whole subassembly, and unfortunately the location of some of those components drive kind of everything else, like the reduction and the splitter gearbox that goes into the tail boom. And so instead of just putting together some subassemblies like the head and the tail rotor, I figured why not get this thing polished up as far as we can take it, and that's even maybe to paint, so that the rest of this is just basically assembly. I have a whole bunch of fiberglass parts like the vertical tail fin. I have the radiator shroud, obviously my dash, the auxiliary gas tank. I got to touch up this boom. We have to get that cowling, that carbon fiber cowling, installed permanently onto the helicopter and get that all faired in. And then I want to get this whole thing primered and one color, and get this thing ready for paint. Now, to make my life hopefully a little easier, I'm going to approach this in kind of a few phases. The first of which is going to be to get everything bonded in that I need to get bonded in. So for that being the cowling, I need to put a access panel on the end of my boom for where the control rod comes out. I need to get the dash mounted. Some people do that permanently, but I'm going to actually make a flange so I can take it out. So I need to do some fiberglassing inside. I need to cut some access holes. So I'm going to do all that rough work first. Then after that's done, I'll come back and we'll just start fairing everything. So we'll put Bondo or epoxy fairing compound on all the seams, make that all look really pretty, do all my final sanding, and then I'll come back, and once it's nice and pretty, we'll put one nice clean coat of probably high build primer that I can then just kind of block sand and make this whole thing look pretty. But first things first, we need to pull that carbon fiber cowling out of its sad little corner and get it installed on the helicopter. So now that the cowling is back on, it's reminding me of a few things. So this gets mounted to the helicopter in 3 locations. One back here at the boom, and then these flanges on either side get permanently mounted to the or to the fuselage, and then it gets connected where those clecos are, and then there will be more back here. I haven't cut this flange off because I planned on post-curing this whole thing, and I didn't want the flange to walk different from the cowling if I post-cured just the cowling. So I need some advice. I need somebody to tell me if this is dumb or not. This was post-cured to 180F. You can take it to 300. So there's another 120 degrees there. If I don't go any higher, this is basically good to 180, and then it could soften up. The fiberglass is only good to 180 anyways. So basically, I'm going to be making the carbon stronger temperature-wise than the fiberglass, and as you know, this whole thing is made of fiberglass. The reason I got high temp epoxy is because the engine and the exhaust are under there, and I was worried what it would do to the part. The reason I don't want to post-cure, or why I'm hesitating to do it to 300, is because I have to build a fixture, and it's going to be a really weird fixture, and there's risk even putting in the oven and it getting soft and crumbling and just screwing up anyways. So part of me is thinking that there's probably just as much or more risk trying to post-cure this as there is leaving it on the helicopter in the off chance it's going to get above 180 degrees, which the fiberglass is already going to start to have issues with at that point anyways. So my gut is saying it's fine. I hope I'm not just being lazy, but I don't really want to find out that this gets messed up in the oven. I think there's less of a chance of it getting messed up in real life. So let me know what you guys think. I don't know. This could change. You guys could change my mind. But I just don't see a world where this gets all hotter than 180. And if it does, I have bigger problems. So in the meantime, we're going to cut this flange out. And as you might remember, basically I built this flange into the front. There is a layer of peel ply in that laminate that is also backed by Kevlar. And the whole plan is to cut through the top few layers of carbon, hit the Kevlar, which will then take us to the peel ply. And then I'll have to work my way and get these two pieces separated. And now it's time to start wedging this thing apart. One thing that may be difficult is I actually have a seam line at the top here near the rear, and then again down here at the top. And so those all fold together and then also come into this flange. And so that stack up is going to be a little wonky. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. So we will see as we get into it, but we're just going to start hacking away and see if this thing will come apart. Voila! All right, I got the flange out of the part and all trimmed up. And to be honest, I mean, it was a pain. It took probably about an hour to get this thing out, but that's a lot less time than it would have taken to make other parts and molds to make this actually work. I'll go ahead and I'll link the video to that goes over in depth of what this actually is in the corner. You can go check it out. But in short, basically, since this was made in the part in one shot, the exterior is going to be perfect, and there's going to be a perfect matchup that you'll see from the outside. And then from the inside, I have continuous fibers that go all the way from the flange that connects the fairing all the way to this bonding surface that'll be permanently mounted to the tail boom. So I have full strength from boom to fairing, and I don't have to worry about this thing separated. That, and when you put it in, you end up getting a perfect seam line. So pretty sweet. For anyone counting out there, I just cut out 1 pound 5 ounces, or like 610 grams out of this cowling, and I still have 2 more flanges that need to come out, which is probably going to be at least another half a pound. So I think we're doing all right. All right, the cowling is on for what I think will be the last time before the flanges get permanently bonded to the fuselage. You can see the tail boom flange, it's temporarily just taped on right now. So we'll remove those clecos and you'll get to see how that's going to work and how that will look when it's bonded. The front 2 flanges, I've got some tape on there. I did some better trimming lines, so we'll go ahead and pull it off. We'll trim it to where I think it will be best for mainly fairing into the fuselage next. Those are also taped onto the fuselage, so we'll pull those clecos off at the front and pull the cowling off. And this is what the helicopter will look like with the cowling removed. Obviously on the back here, we have this flange. It will be permanently mounted to the boom. So that's what it will look like back here. And then up front, you'll see the 2 flanges that connect to the actual fuselage. There's a little skirt there. And then you can see 2 little pockets at the bottom where I changed the actual shape of the fuselage. So I lied, the cowling had to come off and go back on one more time. As you can see, I trimmed that forward flange to better fit the fuselage. I also took some time to kind of feather that forward edge and put a really nice shallow chamfer on it and go almost to like a knife edge. That should hopefully help with that bonded joint at that edge. And it'll also help me fair that kind of that seam line into the fuselage and hopefully make it to where if I have any movement, I won't end up cracking either the fairing compound or the paint that goes on top of it. I also, as you can see, bought some really cheap vice grip clamps that are long reach. That I don't need a lot of clamping force. I just needed the reach to get out there. I'm also going to distribute the clamping force kind of across some popsicle sticks, as you see there. and just basically hold everything where it is at. Everywhere else that I had a shallower reach, I used this Irwin hand clamp, and that should also be sufficient. I went ahead and used a Sharpie to trace along the entire front edge of all three flanges. I'm now going to pull everything back off, and we're going to sand all of the gel coat off of that area wherever I'm going to have a bonded joint, and get all the way down to, or as close to, the base fiberglass as possible, so that that bonded joint will be as strong as I possibly can make it. The entire bonding area was taken down with a 40 grit sanding pad on an angle grinder. I did leave just a little bit of gel coat in all the areas because I didn't want to mess up the fiberglass underneath, especially on the tail boom, which only has a few plies, and those are continuous fibers tip to tip, and I didn't want to mess with the structural integrity of that fiberglass, so I was a little bit lighter back here. I then cleaned everything up with a vacuum first. I followed that up with some compressed air, and then finally a nice wipe with some acetone. For the adhesive, I'm going to be using structural adhesive. This is called MMA, more specifically SCI Grip SG300-40. This was provided by the channel sponsor Fiberglass. Huge thank you and shout out to them. So this stuff only has a working time of about 30 minutes. And so instead of tackling all three joints at once, I'm going to tackle the rear joint first because that is easiest and will help me locate the front when it's done. I'm going to be very, very generous in laying this stuff down. Way more is better than too little. And so we're going to put down a heavy coat just on the boom. I'm going to then kind of flatten it out with a spreader with like some ridges on it to make sure it's nice and consistent. And then we're just going to slide the cowling forward over that bonded joint and kind of let it settle into place. The nice stuff about this is it likes a bonding gap between 0.02 of an inch to 0.3 of an inch, so it actually likes more bonding area or thickness than less, and so that will be just fine in all these locations. Well, I don't think the MMA liked the 65-degree temperature in the basement. After about 18 hours, it was still tacky and sticky in these thin areas, and so I went ahead and put in a space heater down here in the paint booth and let it go for another 24 hours, and that seemed to do the trick. So we'll get this pulled off. I got a sneak peek on the inside. I actually got a really nice kind of bead fillet on the ID of this, which should add a bunch of strength, so I was pretty happy about that. Now, once again, we'll remove the entire cowling off. We'll cleco the front flanges to the cowling. We will prep that bonded joint again and get it all filled in with some MMA, and then I'm going to slide the whole cowling back on, clamp everything into place with clamps and with some just some blue tape basically to hold it tight, and then we'll let this cure for another 24 hours or so, and that should be it. The front two flanges didn't quite go as well as the tail boom flange. You can see that I used way more clamps on this side than I did on that side. That's not because that side is necessarily better. It's just that I ran out of clamps. I just didn't anticipate needing this many. Still think it's going to be okay. Worst case scenario is I just have a little bit more of a gap to fill between the carbon and the body, which isn't that big of a deal. I do know I have a really nice bond across the entire area. It's been about 48 hours. There are still a few small spots that are tacky, so I don't think it's quite set up yet, but it is for the most part. I want to get this thing off and mainly see how that bond looks from the inside, and I'll probably come back and put a nice big fillet on the inside just to make sure that it's nice and strong. The other thing that I had in hindsight, the reason I'm not using really any fasteners or rivets or anything up here is because I wanted that body line to be a really nice smooth transition, but I don't really care down here. And so I might come back, drill some holes, and put some rivets in just for extra strength down in this location. But I mean, the MMA is good once again for 3,000 psi. This should be, I mean, way overkill. I can basically hang this whole helicopter by a square inch with, I mean, 6 times the margin. So we're using way more than that across the entire area here. So I'm actually pretty happy with the amount of squeeze out that I got on the backside of these flanges. And so we're going to shift gears a little bit. First, I'm going to take all this excess MMA down with an angle grinder and that sanding pad, mainly just because it bugs me and I want to see what this thing's going to look like once all that nastiness is gone. But then we're actually going to install the flanges I need to mount the dash. Remember, the whole purpose of this entire exercise is to get the entire helicopter fuselage to a point where I can get primer both inside and out. So I need those flanges in there so I can take the dash back out and then we can get it all painted one color. The upper flange will be made from fiberglass and I'm going to do that layup directly onto the installed or temporarily installed dash, which will give me a perfect basically negative of where that dash goes, and it should sit in there really, really nice. Now the bottom side, I'm actually going to just use fasteners and bolt it in, and I'm going to bolt it into this little keel right here. To give me something to thread those bolts into, I'm going to cut down some 1-inch wide, 1/4-inch thick aluminum bar stock, drill and tap 2 1/4-28 holes into that, and then mix up some JB weld and fasten it to the underside of that keel to give me something solid to thread into. While I'm here, I'm going to cut the 1.5-inch hole for my wire pass-through in the keel and then the 2 1.5-inch holes in the back of the helicopter as well. And while the JB weld sets up over the next 24 hours, I need to figure out a way to hang this thing from the ceiling in a way that actually orients the nose of the fuselage in a way that I can actually get in there and do this layup and not have it be a nightmare. Now the layup itself is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to use some fiberglass cloth and some polyester resin. To prep this whole area, I did a quick sand down with 80 grit sandpaper on the actual fuselage. I laid in a layer of blue tape and then a layer of just box tape on top of that. That will prevent any type of adhesion of the fiberglass cloth to the dash, which I need to be able to remove. And so once I lay in those couple layers of fiberglass cloth and let it cure, this thing should pop right out. The dash flange was the last thing I needed to get done before I could start doing all of the rest of the bodywork on the fuselage. This thing is turning honestly out way better than I anticipated. I'm stoked with how things are going. Something tells me I have a whole lot of sanding in the future. If you haven't done so already and you're enjoying the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe. As always, go build something cool, never stop learning, and we'll see you on the next one.